The transaction's over. It's time to move on. Deandre Ayton, no longer a member of the Phoenix Suns. If you look at the shirt I'm wearing, neither is Chris Paul, neither is Mikal Bridges, neither is Jay Crowder. That starting five that went to the 2021 NBA Finals is left with just Devin Booker. And that includes the entire roster and coaching staff. It's time to move on. The narrative that Deandre Ayton was talking about changing this past offseason has completely and utterly changed. This has been probably some of the wildest basketball off seasons that I've ever seen for the Phoenix Suns, completely flipping the roster. 13 new players they're bringing in to camp, knowing that they're going to have to shave a couple off following some transactions that occurred a couple days ago. So it's time, now that we've had a moment to step away. You know, Matthew, you and I went live right after the transaction happened, as did Suns Geek, who is joining us as well. So, you know, gentlemen, thank you for joining me. Thank you for both of your dedication. When the Suns traded Deandre Ayton for Yusuf Nurkic and other assets, we were all live on our on our own channels talking about exactly what we had just witnessed. And that's one thing I want to talk about today is we'll talk about kind of now that we have a little separation from that event, that massive event in Phoenix Suns history, where we're at with it. But before we get to that, how you guys doing?
I'm doing great.
Doing great.
Doing great. It's Friday night, hanging out with the Jamsters. Nothing better, man. I'm excited to talk more DA. You know,
it's funny, John, because you and I were DMing each other, and I was like, "Yeah, I was thinking of going live, and I want to talk about this, that, and that." And like our shows were pretty much the exact same thing, and you were like, "Why don't we just go live on both channels? Let's do it," because it's like the exact same show, man.
I did not want to come on unless you were here, Suns Geek.
Exactly.
All right,
thank you, man.
I need to mix it up. I need to get the threesome going with you, dude. It gets boring with just John, right?
Wait until I visit Phoenix in a week.
Well, Matthew has actually been on like a writer's strike. He's been picketing out in front of my house, walking up and down, being like, unless there's Suns Geek on the show, I will not go. And he's been chanting that. The neighbors are really frustrated. He knocked over my recycle bin, which is kind of rude, Matthew.
That's a message, though, right?
It did. The message
don't recycle because it doesn't count.
Well, and we got Suns Geek. We got no one recycle. Everybody recycles, but it all ends up in the same place. But we got Suns Geek on the show. And we're simultaneously casting this on both the Suns Geek show and on the Suns Jam session for that exact reason that Brandon mentioned. It's like we're going to be talking about the same topics. Why not save you some time so you don't have to spend 2 hours out of your day going, okay, I got to watch the Suns Geek show. I got to watch the Suns Jam session. Fuck, these guys should have got together. We did you the favor. That's what we did. Okay, you're welcome, Jamsters. And what did we end up calling the Geek Squad?
The Geeketeers or something like that.
The three Geeketeers.
So much has happened since then.
God, that was the Bradley Beal trade days.
Yep.
Oh, so long ago. So again, welcome to everybody who's watching along live on either the Suns Geek channel or on the Suns Jam Session podcast. We appreciate you taking a little time out of your day to do so. Make sure you hit that thumbs up button. Make sure you subscribe, review, do all that fun stuff. Pop over to the other feed. You know, get to know some of the people in the chat there. Do the same. If you're listening to the Suns Jam Session podcast at a later time, please give us a 5-star review and write a review on Apple Podcasts. We'll read it right here on the show. There's plenty to talk about, so this is a good opportunity to kind of let us know what your thoughts are on the show and if we're doing a good job or not, because it's just so hard to stay covering the Phoenix Suns. So without further ado, I'm popping open a Coors Light. As Matthew said, it is a Friday night, and I feel all right. Suns Geek, are you popping open anything special tonight?
I probably should be, and you guys know why, but I'm kind of drunk off coffee right now.
Yes.
So
coffee,
I got some coffee.
Yeah.
Maybe when I visit Phoenix in a week, I'll be wasted.
Yeah, buddy.
Yeah, what? Buddy. You're going to Phoenix in a week?
Yeah, man.
I can't wait.
I thought I told you.
When? I don't listen. My bad.
Live reaction on the show. Matthew just learned.
What?
Because we're talking about potentially doing like a live show together, man. It's going to be really, really fun.
I'm sorry, dude.
Jeez. Matthew, I assume that you're drinking malt liquor or
I will
peppermint
be drinking
schnapps.
a beer in about an hour.
Where are you going drinking tonight?
I'm going to go up to Zips for about an hour to hang out with some friends.
Zips is so good.
Get a Bud Light, maybe.
Get some of those golden medium wings.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I'm pretty hungry. I haven't eaten in a while, so a couple hours.
All right. Well, I'm going to eat this beer.
You eat it.
I'm going to eat my coffee.
And let's talk about the narrative being changed. So obviously the big news that's hit the waiver wire and is the Yusef Nurkic is now a member of the Phoenix Suns, and I feel like that's what we should call it now. It's the Nurkic for Ayton trade. It's not the DA trade, the goodbye. That's saying goodbye to the past. We have to focus on the future. And what I really want to talk about, is kind of our perception of Nurkic on this trade. But I'll start by asking you guys this simple question. We're 2 days away from the deal. I'll start with you, Suns Geek. Tell me how you felt when it happened and where you are right now. Like, give me a grade when it happened and give me a grade of the trade where you're at right now.
To answer both questions, I'm going to give it a B- for the day it happened, like my actual reaction, and even now, because we've had a couple days to process, as I call it. We've had a couple days to do homework, you know what I mean? And I'm still giving it a B. And maybe it's just because there was just so much happening and Damian Lillard was involved in everything. Maybe that's why it seems a little underwhelming, but we can't, I don't care if you watch all this film and you look up all the stats and you do X, Y, and Z. We cannot judge this trade until they have actually played some games and we kind of know what this team looks like. So I'm going to give it a B-. What about you guys?
I feel like you and I had that conversation on the side, didn't we?
Yep, pretty much.
You don't know until you see it. But Matthew,
Yeah.
what grade do you give it when it happened? What grade do you give it now?
When it happened, the trade itself, I didn't like. I didn't like getting Nurkic and those guys back. I don't know if it's a good return or not, but that's his trade value. I give it about maybe a D or a C in there, maybe a C-. Yeah, let's go with the C-. The next day, yesterday, I didn't really feel anything. I kind of forgot about it. I kind of forgot the DA is gone, but then I saw today he's in Portland. I think
He's
that was
happy.
today. He seems, yeah. The energy is there with DA. Dominating's in the house. He's excited to be there. A new beginning for him. A fresh start. Fresh starts are. A lot of people think like, well, if I go somewhere else, if I move somewhere else, things will be different, right? Things will change. Not all the time. You can get rid of the bad people in your life. That'll definitely help. And maybe there were some guys on that roster with the Suns that DA could not stand, and for him to grow, he needs to move away from. But I think in a new situation, nothing's going to change unless you go out there and prove it. We've seen that from DA, him being happy and stuff. So it's good to see him there wearing number 2. He's excited. Right now, I'm gonna stick with just a C-, just overall, as just grading the trade itself. It's kind of nice to not worry about DA. I was kind of waiting for those feelings I had, like when Mikal was gone. I was up for like a week every night,
Yeah, you
looking
were
at Mikal
shaking.
Bridges stuff, and I was upset. It was kind of like a breakup. The first time I heard about it with KD coming, I was fine with it. I was excited. When Mikal, I'm like, oh, Mikal's gone and Cameron Johnson. That was upsetting to me. But right now, I'm not upset. I'm kind of forgetting about it. So I don't know, man. I think it's great that he is gone, and I'm happy for him to have a fresh start. But there's nothing that tells me that he's going to have a good career that we're going to miss. And the whole Nurkic return, who knows? Another guy that has something to prove too, and he's standing next to a big ass cactus on Twitter, and he's excited to be here in Arizona.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you in the aspect that the feelings that I feel upon Deandre Ayton's departure don't obviously match those of when Mikal Bridges left. When it happened, I gave the trade a D-. I feel like the Phoenix Suns got fleeced. I feel like they were desperate. I feel like they zoned in on one player and were doing anything they could to make it happen. And I took into account that if you look at the 3 best players in this trade, we ended up with the 4th best one. So that was a D-. But again, a couple days later, absorbing more, reading more, researching more, hearing things come out. One thing that I've kind of taken out of as a factor is the fact that Dame Lillard is in Milwaukee. Everyone's like, well, if we have to play them in the finals, yeah, that's a big what if. Because I actually think Milwaukee kind of got a little worse with Dame Lillard, just due to the fact that I think that Drew Holiday and what he did fit what they like to do perfectly. And having an offensive player like Dame Lillard is going to really compromise their identity on defense. And that's what their identity is. I think that the Portland Trailblazers obviously aren't done doing what they're doing. But ultimately, I look at it now and I give it a B- now. And part of the reason is, as we talked about when the live reaction happened, that Kevin O'Connell put some of that information out there that the Suns interior or interior or ulterior motives, Devin Booker and Kevin Durant didn't want him here. So if they don't want him here, then fuck, man. Like they got to be right. I got to side with them on that. You know, that's part of it. The other part of it is, the fact that we're bringing back some depth. I don't know if it's great depth, but we're bringing back some depth. But we also gave ourselves some flexibility. That Deandre Ayton, based on all the conversations that we're having, that were occurring, wasn't going to be productive or happy here. As much as we wanted him to be and wanted to see him play under Frank Vogel and believe that he could be that defensive anchor, to see how happy he was in Portland today fortified how unhappy he was in Phoenix, in my opinion. Did you guys feel that?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I definitely did. I think that he can put on that show, though, his energy and stuff, and be pumped up and ready. You know what I mean? He's done that before. Just to be happy in a place with a fresh start is what he needed. The whole thing, though, where I don't know if you listened to Bill Simmons today, but he was all over the Sun saying this was a bad idea.
Yeah, all of a sudden, Bill Simmons was a Deandre Ayton fan. What the fuck was that?
Anytime the Suns do anything, he's always on the opposite team's side. He's always.
I want to hear from Russillo.
Russillo hates Ayton. He's like, good. They had to do it. He understands.
Yeah.
He goes back to the finals run. And, hey, we had a guy that can defend the perimeter. All this stuff was 2 years ago. Nothing happened since. Nothing showed us that he actually improved. And we can count on him in those kind of instances where he can guard a Giannis or even a Jokic. But no one can really guard those guys anyways. So I don't even know what we're talking about, because he's talking about who's going to guard who on the Milwaukee Bucks, because they have Lillard, who's a defensive, like, he can't play
liability.
Defense. He's a liability. And no one can guard anybody. He had a list of guys that's like Devin Booker, all the all-star starter point guards, shooting guards out there. Who's going to guard those guys on that team? It's like no one can guard those guys. So the reason, like, you can maybe be upset that we lost DA is the potential of him being so versatile when he wants to play defense on the perimeter and in the paint, and how good he can eventually be against a Giannis or Jokic. But there's nothing in the last 2 years that showed us that he's improved on that we can count on him in this season. So to see him in Portland with that team, and I know Drew Holiday's not going to be there, with that team around him of young guys, I'm like, oh, there's one guy that's going to join that team, Scoot Henderson. He's going to be a Devin Booker type.
Exactly.
He's gonna expect a lot out of DA.
But he's a grinder.
He is gonna want to win instantly. So for DA to go to a new team, it is young. Hey, I can be the vocal. No. Scoot's going to be the guy. You have to fall in line. So we'll see how that lasts, how long that lasts, and how Scoot can even actually deal with this guy in Deandre Ayton.
I mean, there's a lot, obviously, to break down right there. First off, the DA
break
stuff,
it down.
Usually is after I talk.
The whole DA stuff there. Like, I understand you're kind of putting on a show for the cameras, and I get it. Like, you don't want to go into a new job and be like, oh, this job sucks and I hate this place. Get me out of here. But, like, just like Phoenix Suns fans would do, and they're going to continue to do, it's like, show your excitement with your play, Deandre Ayton. So, even though I think it was a little over the top what he said in that video, like, I feel like I just get drafted. I'm so excited to be here. Whatever. It is what it is. Go and prove it, especially when we play them back-to-back in preseason games. I want to see, how great Deandre Ayton is going to be and how excited he is to play for the Blazers. But going to the Milwaukee thing just real quick, something that I think's getting a little overlooked, they didn't trade Chris Middleton. I'm just throwing that out there. To be honest with you, I don't know what their bench looks like. I don't know how good they're going to be on defense.
They got Jay Crowder on it.
They got Jay Crowder, you know what I mean? It's like, I think they're going to be okay. I don't know if they're a finals contender. And I did see a couple of those like, oh, well, we made the Milwaukee Bucks better and all that. Let's just get to the fucking playoffs already. Excuse my language. Let's just start the season. Worry about all that later. But I don't know. That's just kind of my thoughts.
Well, and the big thing that a lot of what frustrates Suns fans is ultimately what Ayton's market value was. A max center, not necessarily earned, right? Like, he had a really good postseason in 2021. And outside of that, it's been inconsistent. But the Suns astutely signed him to a max, not right away. And there could be some fallout from that. Like, Gerald Bourguet of PHNX had a good point where he stated that because the Suns didn't give him a max right after that 2021 when he was initially eligible, even it probably should have been the right thing to do to keep up his engagement. And instead, it deterred him from his success, and he held resentment, and it continued. And that's ultimately what broke and fractured the relationship with him and Monty Williams, and him with Matt Ishbia, him with Devin Booker and Kevin Durant, is the fact that his relationship was fractured because he didn't feel like he was properly valued. They do give him a max contract, so now on paper he's a max contract player. You can't tell me that you believe he played, or you can tell me, and I would just disagree with you, I'll say it that way, that he was a max contract center last year. 18 and 10, those are great numbers. Those are Miles Turner numbers. Miles Turner is not a max contract center. So a big frustrating part that a lot of Phoenix Suns fans are dealing with is the fact that the return on Deandre Ayton, there's 2 deals that we've heard about this offseason. One was Tim Hardaway Jr., Rashawn Holmes, and JaVale McGee, and I think like a second-round pick from the Dallas Mavericks, or what we ultimately got, which was Yusef Nurkic. We got Grayson Allen, Nasir Little, and also Keon Johnson back. That's what his value was. And that's where a lot of Suns fans feel fleeced, because it's like, well, you hear all these big names changing teams and you try to make the trade happen on NBA 2K and it's fucking impossible because it's like, I don't even know. There's too many roster spots. But at the same time, that's his market value. And I love what Long John Silver, 85, one of our elite jamsters on the Suns Jam Session podcast states. He says, you guys are walking into a tattoo shop with $15 and expecting to get a sleeve. That is a great way to put exactly what happened. The Suns fans walked in with $15, which was DeAndre Ayton, and we wanted to get a sleeve tattoo. And ultimately, we got back what was fair market value. Now, we'll discuss what that market value was and how these pieces fit, but do you feel that that's a fair assumption?
Oh, yeah, for sure. I think that what we got back is just what we got back. For me, my mindset's just like kind of moving on from him like they were trying to do. It's pulling the trigger before media day, before training camp, to make sure that he is not with the team and that they don't have to wait till the trade deadline. That was the biggest thing. And, I'm not talking negative about him. I'm not. I'm just saying that that's obviously what they wanted to do. And I don't know, Suns Geek, you were talking, I guess you guys said earlier there was a Ishbia piece or something about in the Athletic. So I think when the owner is actually involved and he knows, and everyone's like, oh, I couldn't wait. And I think Bill Simmons said it too. With Frank Vogel, I wanted to see how he can do. Frank Vogel had the opportunity, I'm sure, with DA to meet him and see what's going on. It's not like he came to the team and he's like, oh, I didn't even get to meet him. I didn't even get to understand. No. There's something there, obviously, that even Vogel, who's been here for a couple months, picked up on. And that's why he's out. And that's why we didn't get a big return, because the whole league knows how and what DA is, except for the Pacers, who were willing to offer the max. And now the Blazers, who had no option other than to get a DA to excite their fan base of the potential of what he might be.
I feel like a lot of the conversation all season long between Suns fans, writers, podcasters, and myself and everything is going to be the whole, like, what if with DeAndre Ayton? What if we would have kept him till the trade deadline, the Frank Vogel stuff? And I truly do take Frank Vogel at his word. I do believe he was building a relationship, even if it was just through the phone, man. I do believe that.
He kissed him through the phone.
As you guys referenced here, this does come from The Athletic. Now, Hoops Hype posted this, but this is from The Athletic. It's from David Aldridge, Sam Amick. Apparently, and I'm going to try to read this as best I can here. Matt Ishbia, as The Athletic was told, was very involved in this deal. Phoenix not only wanted more depth, but also players who they believed were a better fit for Devin Booker, Durant, and Beal. Nurkic, the 29-year-old big man who was signed through the 2025-26 campaign, was a longtime target on that front who they're thrilled to have landed. So, even before that came out, I heard a couple other, I think it was like Arizona Sports and all them talking about it. It was like, well, what if it was Devin Booker and Kevin Durant who wanted DeAndre Ayton gone? I think this was a bunch of people.
It was an organizational decision.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Now, who knows if James Jones was involved in that? Maybe, during the media day, we'll find that out. But, when the owner is, quote, involved in the decision, as The Athletic put it, that's where it all starts right there. And again, I do believe Frank Vogel wanted to keep DA and build a great relationship with him. That's the biggest what if. But as Devin Booker said, if ifs were fists, we'd all be drunk or something like that.
Yeah.
But still, I'm going to talk about it all season. You know what I mean? I don't care, man. I really wanted to see DA on this team, even just for a little bit.
I did too, 100%. And yes, it is an ultimate what if. And Sundurst Dunk says in the chat, it will always be a what if unless we win the chip.
Exactly.
And and that's just the way that, that is the narrative. We talk about the narrative being changed. That is the narrative of this season. This is a swinging point for this season, for this franchise, because we'll never know truly what happened. So if the Phoenix Suns win the finals, it was the right decision.
Preach.
Yeah, and I asked Matthew this question when it first occurred, and I'll ask you this same question, Suns Geek. At what point does it not become the right decision? If the Suns don't win the finals, if the Suns make the final, or if the Suns make the finals but don't win it, if the Suns make the Western Conference Finals but don't advance, if the Phoenix Suns don't get out of the second round, at what point are you going to turn back and be like, well, if we had DA?
I would say now let's say we're 90% healthy and we get eliminated in the Western Conference Finals. That's when I say it was at least a failure for this season. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
We get to the finals though. I think that sometimes gets overlooked. Like, yeah, you didn't win the championship. And I know the Suns lost 4 in a row in 2021. I get it. I don't care. They still made the finals. So in my opinion, they have to get to the finals. No excuses.
Matthew, do you agree?
I do. And it depends how DA plays in Portland. If he goes out there and he balls and they're winning, because they might be a playoff team. If they can maybe get a return, not maybe like a fringe team, but they can absolutely
borderline.
With that roster, it's pretty good. So if he can kind of carry them there and play the Suns in the first round, who the fuck knows? That's probably what's going to happen.
NBA script writers taking notes.
A big upset, DA beats Phoenix. Then that's when I stab myself right in the heart a couple times, because I'll probably miss a few times. I don't know where is it, the heart in the middle or on the left side? I forget. It's changed.
You let me know once you start stabbing.
that's when I'll know that. Oh well, we fucked up. That's up to DA to show us what he has this year, and if we're gonna be regrettable or to regret it. What's up?
I'm sorry to interrupt, Matt. I was just going to say, can we not be the Tracy McGrady of the NBA and actually get out of the second round? You know what I mean? 2 years in a row, man.
Oh, yeah. Tell me about it.
It's DA's fault.
Well, so you look at this deal in its totality. Okay, so DA's gone. Period. Narrative changed. It's the Nurkic deal. What about this deal worries you? Matt? And don't say health, because health is always the fucking answer for everything. If you want to say health, then you got to be worried about KD. You got to be worried about Bradley Beal. You got to be worried about Devin Booker. And I get the best ability is availability. But outside of that, like, is there anything about acquiring not just Nurkic, but Allen and Little and Johnson that worries you?
Nothing worries me. Oh, go ahead, Sungi.
My bad. I'm totally cutting you off and interrupting you.
You're good.
Y'all chemistry is lame.
I would say patience, and I'm going to just bounce off what John just said right there. Chemistry, just patience, though, because let's be real. We were talking about this when we traded for Bradley Beal. It is going to take some time. There's going to be nights with how great Beal and KD and Booker are where the ball's just not going to go in the damn basket. And I'm probably going to be overreacting. You guys will be overreacting. Suns Twitter will be on fire, but then we'll win like 3 in a row and everything will be okay. So I would say patience and chemistry.
There's nothing to me deep down when I dig deep for this one. I'm not worried about anything about a return, because I was the opposite, where I just realized, DA just had to go. All right. I've already talked about that. But the next thing is, like, we have pieces back that it's more depth, right? Nurkic has to stay healthy, obviously. Now, you said not to say health, but I'm not going to say health. I'm going to say just getting these guys on the court and meshing well. I think that Nurkic is excited to be here. And if he does stay healthy, that's great. But it's just the chemistry that they're going to have without DA. So there's nothing really that worries me at all. I really don't think, and I'm probably going to eat my words like I always do, I really don't think you go into the season and all of a sudden you start losing game. Like, that's not going to happen. The thing is health. But John told me not to say health. So I'm going to say there's no worries then. Because if this team says, I'm going to say it again. If this team stays healthy.
Shit.
Go ahead, John.
It's true, though.
What I dislike is what it does ultimately for us on defense. Because Nurkic is a slower defender on the perimeter, which might not matter night to night. But come the postseason, he's the kind of big that gets targeted in pick and roll after pick and roll after pick and roll. So that does concern me. The one aspect that Deandre Ayton had was it was hard to play him off the court. He would play himself off the court with his attitude, energy, and engagement.
Yes.
But it wasn't his physical ability that got him off the court. Whereas Nurkic, I can see during the regular season, Nurkic is going to be great for this team. That's why Suns brass wanted him, because he makes sense within the confines of this offense and defense, because night to night, they're not going to be as much targeting and high pick and rolls, trying to pull him away from the basket consistently. But when you get into a series, as we all know, by game 2, 3, and 4, the opposition they identify the pigeon and they attack. And that is the one thing that really is it that I'm going to be that I have like 7 months until I get to see what I believe is the weakness of this team play out in front of me. Outside of that, I think that our floor was ultimately raised. Our ceiling wasn't raised, but our floor was raised because of the type of depth that we have. And that being said, and we'll go into the individual players, but I will say what I do like about this deal, especially as it pertains to Nurkic. I like that he stretches the floor. You look at him as compared to Deandre Ayton when it comes to three-point shooting, and good, bad, or indifferent, he's a better three-point shooter on higher volume. Okay, he doesn't chuck up a ton of threes, but last year he averaged 2.3 three-point attempts per game, and he hit 36% of them. Whether you like it or not, that's good, and that's not something that DA had. So that's an upgrade there. He's also somebody who has playmaking ability. He can bring the ball up the court. He's a sneaky good passer. He's more confident in his passing, something that DA was decent at, but lacked the confidence to do so. Yep. And when you throw him the ball, he fucking catches it. He's more fun to play with as the Suns 5 on 2K than DA is. I'll tell you that. I'm already enjoying that little change. But again, that's a lot of regular season analysis. It's the postseason where I really think that this could ultimately hurt the Suns. But at the same time, it's going to come up to Frank Vogel and how he attacks that. If he goes, Nurkic is getting played off the court right now, KD's going at the 5. But again, the positive to the negative is Nurkic is coming into a system that highly values him, and Frank Vogel who wants to coach him, and that unto itself is valuable.
Yeah, that is. And the thing is, the past 2 years, dude, I know it's DA and the potential, but what are we seeing to where we're like, okay, we can count on DA's defense? You know what I mean? I know he's better. It's there, but he did not want to stay consistent with it. That's the scary thing because we know what Nurkic is, right? We'll see what he is. But okay, that's what we're going to expect every night. He's going to put it out there unless he's hurt. DA, his defense just wasn't there after the finals run. It really wasn't. Games here and there, it was. But even in the Pelicans series a year ago, you couldn't count on them. And that really, all those guys, the way the Pelicans were built, they were just dominating us in the paint. They were huge. DA was nowhere to be found in that series. So that's what I'm saying. That's why I don't understand how we can keep talking about the defensive part, because I don't care about the defense part. Long John Silver said in there, he said defense doesn't win championships, but offense does. I'm a big believer in that too, but I think the chemistry is just the biggest thing. If you can get that chemistry back to where it was, because the reason the Suns never won a championship with Chris Paul is because there was always injuries. Chris Paul would get hurt, right? Devin Booker would get hurt.
Or Drew Holiday made a great defensive play on Devin Booker that could have swung the series.
Devin Booker, who's a limited. Yeah, but Devin Booker at that time too, 3 years ago, he was limited as the player he is now, I feel like. In that situation of him going head to head against Drew, I just think that Drew was the better defender to what Devin Booker wanted to do in that position to win the game or to tie the game. He was just the better defender in that situation. But now Booker's a better player. That's the way Booker's been his whole career. He's always taken on the next step, the next challenge, even though it doesn't look good. But in the next few seasons, he improves and he'll be able to hit that shot next time. I don't know if that makes sense, but I hope that I answered your question.
I'm excited for Nurkic, man.
What is going on tonight?
Everything you guys just said, pretty much.
Am I good? Okay.
Yeah.
I'm gonna listen to this one later.
I'm just gonna pretty much
shower,
back up everything you guys just said right there. Nurkic will be. I don't know if this is fair to say, but if Matt Ishbia, James Jones, and everybody, even Booker and KD, if they said Nurkic can do X, Y, and Z, and there's the salaries involved in there.
Mm-hmm.
And, even though Ayton is the better player, Nurkic can still do X, Y, and Z. That's all we need. Plus, we're getting a pesky, hated player in Grayson Allen and somebody who I think is a little underrated, Nazir Little, however you pronounce his first name.
Yeah, we'll talk about him momentarily.
Yeah, exactly. It's I think that's kind of what they went over, and then they looked at everything that's gone on with Ayton the past 5 years, which we could all spend hours upon hours doing podcasts and shows talking about the last 5 years with Ayton. But I think that pretty much just sums it up right there. And we'll find out. But at the same time, we may never find out. Media day is going to be interesting.
That it will be. Oh, that it will be. So talking about the other assets involved, Grayson Allen, playoff experience, a fuck shit up guy, adds overall depth. What are your guys' thoughts? Yeah, hated. Matthew, what do you think about Grayson Allen? Do you think that this is a good addition for the Suns? Is he a little duplicitous with other members of the roster? Will he see time?
I don't
jail
know.
time?
I was excited. I was excited just to have him on my team, but the more and more I hear about him and how he's just actually a big zero in the playoffs and stuff, I'm not too familiar with his game. I know he did get run out of the playoffs the last few times, wasn't really making an imprint. I'm excited for it, but I keep thinking in the back of my mind, these guys might not even stick around. That's why I'm not getting too attached to them. I think Nurkic is going to be here to stay for sure. But the thing is like, I think Nurkic, even Little, who's more exciting to me, they might be gone. And you know what? We have such depth where it's just like, I don't even want to see Grayson Allen as much because I'm so excited about everybody else on this roster.
That's fair, Matthew. I was going to kind of say that, and I'm going to start sounding like a broken record, but I really do believe this. This is a really good problem for Frank Vogel to have. I mean, look, I don't know if we're the deepest team in the NBA. That remains to be seen. But if you look at on paper, how do you play all of these guys? And I kind of agree with you, Matthew. Like, it is going to be a little hard to get attached to some of these guys because let's be real. We could wake up tomorrow. There could be another move on the horizon. There's a little bit of rumors and everything. We got a lot of players that bring depth and defense and can shoot, spread the floor and all that. It's going to be interesting, but I do believe, outside of the Dame stuff and the Ayton stuff, they made the trade for some of these other guys for a reason. And I hope we keep Naz Little. That's all I'm saying.
So Ted Offensive in the chat, Voida, now that Grayson is on the Suns, does he still have a top 10 punchable face in the NBA? I know he didn't make my top 5. Top 10, I think he's still there. I kind of want to sock him still. I mean, it's just one in the kisser.
You'll see him Monday.
Yeah.
The opportunity, right? Might be standing right next to him. See how punchable it is.
Please get it on camera so we can upload it.
Good question. Good question. I'm with you guys. Grayson Allen, we just have to see. I don't know if he will be on this team. I still feel there's a couple transactions out there, and I do like what Saltiest Gaming said in the chat. He goes, something that is overlooked is the fact that Suns can make a trade for a player that they couldn't before with their huge contracts and minimum players. What they did is by taking DA's contract and splitting it up. Now you have Yusuf Nurkic, who's at $16 million, I believe. You have Grayson Allen, who's at $8 million, and you have Nasir Little, who's I think at $6 million. So that gives you
unrestricted free agents.
Yes, unrestricted next year. So those become trade chips with potentially draft picks, and I know we don't have a ton, but we still have some, second round picks and things of that nature. We do have things to where the Suns can make little things happen now. So again, it opens up some flexibility, which is a plus that they didn't have prior to the overall transaction. You guys have both talked a little bit about Nasir Little. Tell me what you guys are seeing, because I think I'm on the other side of the coin on this one.
Well, what I do, I haven't really watched him at all, but what I have read about him is, he does have the effort out there. I think the one podcast we had, have we only had 2? The podcast during the trade where I did talk about just how he is known to be a guy that can, leave it all on the court. He has improved. His stats have every year, but also his 3-point shooting is over at 40%. So that's nice to have. And that might not even be true because I don't even really watch them. So what do you think, Suns Geek?
I'm gonna echo what you said, and I don't want to sound like an expert on him necessarily, but I will. Well, I agree with you. Actually,
I didn't say anything.
Matt, we gotta work on our team chemistry, man.
Yeah. Well, I gotta leave here in like a minute anyway. So I'm sorry.
I'm just gonna echo what you said though, because I do believe he is a player though when he's actually. And sorry, John, I do actually have to use this word here.
That's fair.
When he is healthy, the dude plays hard. He shows up. He plays defense. Can hit shots. I feel like he's gonna be one of the. And I know a lot of people hate him, but just like with Grayson Allen and with Jordan Goodwin, he's going to be one of those practice players that's going to be up in your face, and that's what Beal, KD, and Booker need and all that. So I'm in for this move.
I like what Durantula says. Nasir Little averaging 5 to 6 points on a lottery team is not excited. Everything that I kind of hear about Little coming out of Blazers camp is they're very one, they all thought he was going to be traded this offseason because he didn't show continual growth as a player.
Yep.
This is somebody who ultimately was taken with the 25th overall pick back in 2019. He's 6'5". He has a ton of athletic ability, but he's also been regressing. And part of that is due to injuries, but part of that is just engagement on the court and things of that nature. He's regressed from a shooting standpoint. Matthew talked about his 3-point shooting. The best year he had was this past season at 36.7%. He's a career 33.5% 3-point shooter. So that
was Grayson Allen I was thinking about. My bad.
Yeah, Grayson Allen can shoot the 3 ball, and that's why he's a
40%.
valuable asset. And I think that he's somebody who could stick on this team. I think Nasir Little is somebody who, again, Flex from Jersey says that the Suns were high on this guy. He's a developmental kind of guy, and that's the advantage I guess they have. When you talk about a team that's too deep, you're taking a look at Little, who at this point is, how old? He's 23 years old. He's going to be 24 this season. And if you want to kind of have him hanging around the background, James Jones kind of guy, work on some skills, but he has regressed in defense. He's not a good off-ball defender in any way, shape, or form, which is kind of the majority of the Portland Trailblazers were bad off-ball defenders. That's not something he excels at. He's kind of like a Saban Lee, in which he can shoot the 3 ball, and he's great at attacking the cylinder, but he's really kind of bad in the mid-range. So he's not a 3-tier player. Doesn't get, and for somebody who attacks the cylinder as much as he does, if you look at his per 36s, because that's the best kind of way to analyze what he does, because he only played 18 minutes a game last season. But from a per 36 standpoint, he only averaged 1.7 free throw attempts. So he attacks the rim, he finishes well at the rim, but he doesn't do it enough to guard. He turned into just kind of like a 3-point shooter who stands around. And I don't know if, one, this team's going to keep him, and 2, if they do, how much playing time he's going to get. So he's a salary guy. That's what you have to look at him. Keon Johnson is as good as waived, in my opinion.
Yep.
And Nasir Little might be waived as well. The only reason you don't waive him is the size of his contract, and you hope that he can flash something. He can stay healthy by sitting behind the third. He's a third small forward on the bench. He could be behind fucking Ish Wainwright as the 4th, and you play him a little bit here and there, and then just try to dish him around the trade deadline.
Yeah, I think it's good to have him in training camp too. Just
Agreed.
A bunch of those dudes that are just ready to fight for any spot on the team. Yeah, they're fighting for everything except for Devin Booker and the other guys. But I'm gonna take off. I apologize. I am gonna take off.
Matthew.
I love you, Jamsters.
Go
Everyone
to
have a
Zips.
good rest of the night.
Everybody
drink a beer for me.
Zips.
Drink a beer for me.
All right. Bye-bye.
It's find the Matthew. If you can find him
I'm
at the
gonna
right
leave the camera
Zips,
on
you
to
win a
talk shit
prize.
after I get off. You're fucking bullshit, pod. I can't believe they asked me on.
Suns Geek kept interrupting me.
All right, bye guys.
Take care, Matthew.
Bye.
One thing I did want to obviously talk about is, what CJ Oracle says in the chat. Matthew's going to hang out on the pod, apparently. Do you all think we will trade for TJ McConnell, and how much? So that's obviously
good segue.
A great segue into the transactions that are still out there. Yahoo Sports' Jake Fisher reported that the Suns continue to pursue Indiana's TJ McConnell. So question 1, I guess I have for you, Suns Geek, is TJ McConnell a good fit?
Oh yeah, absolutely. This has been a player that I've always liked and everything. I don't know if this term gets thrown around a lot in the NBA verse and football and all that, but is it fair to say he's a Swiss Army knife? And one thing that stands out for me is I believe last season it was 5 assists or something like that in just 20 minutes off the bench, by the way.
Yeah.
He's got decent size for a guard. Been in the league for a little bit. I think he's 32 or something like that.
Sounds about
doesn't
right.
really seem like he is. Can do a lot of different things out there. And it's not the first time that he's been linked to the Phoenix Suns, whether it's a rumor or trade or whatever it may be. This has been building for a while. And I don't know, man, I could see it. Now, again, this is also another good problem to have. Who are you going to give up? How does this trade work? You and I could analyze all day. People can go to the trade machines and all that. But if we trade for TJ McConnell, I believe it's the right move. And you've heard me say it a lot. I've heard you say it. I feel like he's a James Jones kind of guy. And whether that's good or bad, because obviously we haven't won a championship yet, still remains to be seen. But I'm on board if we trade for him, if we don't give up too much. You know what I mean?
I don't know how much we can give up in an effort to get him. That he's somebody who is also an unrestricted free agent. In 2 years, he has a player option next year with the Indiana Pacers. Makes $8 million. So him for Grayson Allen straight up actually works.
Probably for both sides.
Would you do that if you were the Suns?
Yeah, I would, because I feel like the Pacers might surprise a little bit of people. I'm not saying they're going to be like a heavy favorite in the playoffs or everything, but I feel like they've been building and their rebuild is over. And they had a, I know they didn't make the playoffs last year and they're in the lottery and all that, but they got a lot of talent, all starting with Tyrese Halliburton. And you could tell their rebuild was going to be short. So if it's Grayson Allen for TJ McConnell, it kind of works for both sides. And I'm not calling Grayson Allen a Swift Army knife, but it's like you're pretty much swapping a defensive guard for another defensive guard, and there it is.
So I look at it like this. One, I agree. TJ McConnell on this team, I think, would really help from a depth standpoint because he's a true point guard.
Yep.
The only true point guard we have on this team currently is Jordan Goodwin, who obviously came over in the trade with the Washington Wizards for Bradley Beal. And while we've watched the highlights, we haven't seen him and how he operates within the confines of Frank Vogel's system, et cetera, et cetera.
Because he got hurt the first summer league game. We only saw like 10 minutes.
Yeah, we got 10 minutes of him and it was over and that was it. So it makes sense for the Phoenix Suns. I don't know necessarily how it makes sense for the Indiana Pacers because he's an unrestricted free agent next year. With McConnell, you still have some control. He does have a player option, so that is on him. It's not fully guaranteed, his contract, that is. So it's not a player option. I'm sorry. It's a non-fully guaranteed contract. So how that works essentially is if they choose to keep him on, he has to stay on the roster for a certain amount of time before his contract becomes fully guaranteed. So they do have control. And that's something that they might value. And you go back and you look, the first rumors that happened earlier this summer relative to Deandre Ayton and where his landing spot could be is the Indiana Pacers. A TJ McConnell and Miles Turner for Deandre Ayton deal worked and didn't happen. And you have to think that that's because the Indiana Pacers either don't value DA as much as they were willing to pay him the max contract 2 summers ago, or it was too much because they didn't want to give up Miles Turner. I believe it's the latter. I think they did not want to give up Miles Turner. So Grayson Allen for TJ McConnell might be something that's a little bit more appealing for them. But again, I think something needs to sweeten the pot a little bit because you have an unrestricted Grayson Allen headed over to their side of the transaction. If you throw a couple second-round picks in there, it's a gamble again by the Phoenix Suns because, again, you don't know how long TJ McConnell is going to be with this organization if those second-round picks can be utilized otherwise. But I think it's a good strategic move for the Suns to operate in that fashion.
Yeah, and even though I love TJ McConnell and I'm kind of hyping him up here, I know that second-round picks, especially – with the Phoenix Suns, they get thrown around like Pokemon cards, you know what I mean? They get traded super fast and all that. But I will say, with all due respect to TJ, he is not worth, a player and a second-round pick, you know what I mean? Especially since we don't really have many and there's all those pick swaps. We got to kind of save those, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And also, too, something I was just thinking about when you were talking is there's some teams out there that might be done with their offseason. They might want to just take what they have going into train. Obviously, it's different with the Suns and all that, but maybe the Pacers are like, you know what, we're good. We had a good offseason. I forget how many guards they have, but I feel like they kind of have a lot of guards. So even if Phoenix did call them and said, hey, you want to do a swap? I could see them saying no. But again, it's sort of like with the DeAndre Ayton thing. It seemed like Damian Lillard one day was going to go to Toronto. The next day was the Heat. That all changed with the phone call. Who knows, man? But
it can happen again, quick.
If the Suns can somehow do it, get TJ McConnell.
Rob Bart asks in the chat, do you think we should go after Drew Holiday?
Yeah, but I don't see a scenario how that happens. I mean, Drew Holiday's a really great player, great defensive guard, won a title and all that, but I think it's extremely unlikely. But what do I know, John? Because I didn't think Bradley Beal I didn't even give Bradley Beal like a 2% chance of being here. Now he's on our team. What do I know?
Well, I think the difference is now that we are in the new season, the Bradley Beal transaction took place in the old season, last season. Yep. So it could happen. Drew Holiday is slated to make $35 million this next season. He's got a player option for $37.3 next year. Unless you're trading Bradley Beal for him, we don't have the assets to staff to do it.
I'm like, I can't see that.
I can't see it literally happening he's going to end up, I'm hoping if I could pick a place where Drew Holiday ends up and because the Portland Trailblazers don't want to hold on to him, I hope it's the Philadelphia 76ers for two reasons. One, it means James Harden is out of there and most likely would end up on the Clippers because I feel it would be a 3-team deal involving the Clippers. And it just be fun to see Westbrook and Harden on the Clippers and just not work. So that would benefit us. And then it'd be funny to see Drew Holiday go to Philadelphia and then have to D up Dame Lillard on the Milwaukee Bucks and just fucking own his ass. So from a basketball standpoint, that's where I kind of hope he ends up.
And it would be a little bit of a homecoming too, because I believe he got drafted there and all that, played a couple of years there. And let's be real. I mean, we're not Sixers experts here, but that James Harden just needs to get traded. And I'm not just saying that because it's fun to make trades, but it is long overdue. You know what I mean? Trade James Harden already. Get Joel Embiid some consistent, real help. And like you said, I want to see Drew Holiday go up against Dame Lillard in the East.
Yeah, I think
that's crazy. Lillard's in the East now. That just hit me just now.
I know, right? And Drew Holiday's in the West, so we got to get him out of here. Okay, get him back to the Eastern Conference. He's a book killer. Right. Suns Media Day is next Monday. So I know you had some questions about Suns Media Day. Take it away, Suns Geek.
Yeah, so this was a segment that, we were supposed to get our friend Trevor Booth on. Trevor's a great guy, by the way, and I hope to get him on eventually one day, but scheduling didn't really work out. And John, this was actually inspired by an article. Did you write this one? Because this was from Bright Side of the Sun. And I think I sent it to you.
Yes. Yeah, the change narrative Deandre Ayton one.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, so I wanted to talk about this, and I love this quote right here. Now, keep in mind, this article was written a long time ago, and this kind of inspired me to talk about this because, by the way, Suns fans, if you didn't know, Media Day is Monday, October 2nd. I can't wait. John, I don't know about you, but in my personal opinion, that is when basketball season starts. So you're like, okay, Suns Geek, get to the point. All right, so you wrote this a long time ago. Now, obviously, Deandre Ayton was still on the roster then. Thankfully for DeAndre, the roster entering the 2023-24 season is much different than it was a year ago. Last year, Jay Crowder was holding out, Robert Sarver was suspended, and his comments were made public. Media Day 2022 felt like a funeral. So, John, just real quick, before we talk about Media Day this year, can you just tell me what it was like being there and the awkwardness? Because we saw the DeAndre Ayton stuff, his comments there, and even just seeing the stuff on Twitter and certain videos, because I wasn't there obviously, but I covered Media Day on my channel. It just felt weird. How was it, man? Like, I want to just hear you, and then we'll talk about Media Day this year.
Sure. So it was strange because it was my first Media Day with the Suns. I write for Bright Side of the Sun. For those who don't know, I'm the managing editor of that website. And last year I was the deputy manager. Dave King was still the managing editor, but I went with media credentials to the event. So it was my first time attending. And it occurred, for those of you who are familiar with the area, it didn't occur in the Footprint Center. It occurred on the south side of the Footprint Center, where I believe it used to be Alice Cooperstown. Maybe not Alice Cooperstown.
I know what you're talking about.
There was another bar. It's a brick bar. And that's where it took place. So it wasn't like you walk in, you get your credentials. You had to like walk upstairs, around, down into another room that used to like hold private events. And it was a little bit of a bigger room, but you sit there, a bunch of the folding chairs. Brian Windhorst was sitting right there. Nice. Crispy Haynes was there. Obviously with everything that had happened around the Phoenix Suns and Jay Crowder and Robert Sarver, a lot of national media attention was focused on the Phoenix Suns and their Media Day. And when you sat down in there, and the first guy to come out is James Jones, and the questions instantly start happening. And the reason I said it felt like a funeral is because it was in this kind of like small little room. And all of the energy was negative because all the questions were negative. This is a team that had just won 64 games. But that being said, this is a team that had just been bounced out of the playoffs in Game 7 against the Mavs. So there's a negative feeling still percolating. The Suns didn't do a lot last offseason to really improve their roster.
They ran it back.
They ran it back.
I had issues with that.
Yeah. I mean, they brought in like Josh Okogie, but they ultimately, from a starting five standpoint, they ran it back, but one of the players didn't want to run it back, and that was Jay Crowder. So it was just a negative question after negative question after negative question. And I remember I was sitting on the side where the players were leaving and they were exiting, but Deandre Ayton came in that door because he goes against the grain. And I remember he walked in with the lady, and he was like kind of joking and laughing with her. And I literally saw him like change his face as he started heading towards the podium, and he just completely lost all joy in his face. He's sitting there, he's laughing, he's joking, he's kind of ribbing her a little bit, and then he stonewalls it and then walks up there and then has to answer those questions. And that's understandable from a human element, but it was just kind of a microcosm of the day in its totality. And it was a bunch of, how do you guys feel about Jay? This sucks about Robert Sarver. No one was talking about 64 wins. No one was talking about, the Kevin Durant rumors were running rampant, and everybody, was on edge. Cam Johnson was answering questions about knowing that he is a potential trade asset and what it felt like to actually do that. In fact, Cam Johnson was probably the most enjoyable interview that day because of his bright, spunky, kind of just inquisitive nature, and his well articulated ways were something that was a breath of fresh air after, Coach and James Jones, it's one after another, just kind of going through this rigmarole.
Right. Thank you for answering that, man. That's a conversation you and I probably would have had like in private or whatever, because I wanted to ask you that anyway. I'm surprised I actually didn't ask you that before, but when I read that article that you wrote and it's on Bright Side of the Sun and everything, I was like, damn, that was like a really good like quote or whatever. I was like, I was going to talk about that on my own channel, and then we started talking, and we got Trevor involved and all that. But
it's also probably because my dad had just died, and I was used to funerals at that time.
Right. Sorry to hear that, man. Sorry to hear that, man.
But this year's media day, which again, it's gonna be covered. I assume that the Suns are broadcasting it on their YouTube page, but it's 10 a.m. Monday morning. Matthew and I will both be there. In fact, we're going to be doing a live podcast from there, Jamster. Nice. So make sure you tune into the channel, because we're going to find a spot somewhere, and then, just set up my phone and stream from there, and sit next to each other, not do kind of this thing, but more like, hey, what do you think? Like, that was kind of funny. I got to figure out which side I look better from, which is probably neither, but yeah, I mean, it's super exciting. It's because, again, this truly feels, and this one's going to be happening inside the arena, not across the street. So I'm excited to see, to feel the vibe and feel the energy around a team that has so much newness to it. And this time, there's Kevin Durant's walking in, and Bradley Beal, and to ask Devin Booker how he feels about everything that's been put around him and how he brought these people here. What does that truly feel like, and things of that nature.
Exactly. And I guess we don't have to spend too much time on it, because you kind of just answered it. Like, I guess that's kind of what we're anticipating and what we're hoping for. And that's the reason I want to talk about this. I just hope that media day is more optimistic, better. And sure, there's going to be some negative stuff. Like, a lot of it's going to be about Deandre Ayton and everything.
For James Jones, it definitely will be, and a little bit Frank Vogel, I assume.
Exactly. But like media day, even for like the worst teams in the league, man, it's supposed to be like a day of hope. Everyone's excited. Everyone's there. You get to talk to everybody for the most part. At least that's what we assume is going to happen and all that. So I will be there in spirit. I wish I could be there, but I unfortunately will not be. But I hope you and Matthew have a great time. I can't wait to watch that pod. And thank you for answering that, man, because last year's media day was just so weird, man. That was, I don't know. I had a bad feeling after that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think we all did as Suns fans. It was awkward, and I think that you could feel it, because I went back and I watched some of the interviews, because I was obviously gathering quotes that I didn't capture in the moment to, for some of the articles and pieces that we were putting out on Bright Side of the Sun, and like you could feel it, and you could see that the guys were just. They knew it was coming. I think that's what it was. It was the first chance to get in front of people with some really uncomfortable topics, and they handled themselves as well as they could. But ultimately, I think it hurt the way that that whole perception of following a 64-win season, and that was kind of the tone the rest of the season. So
for real.
Quick shout out. We have a super chat from Blaze Megatron, a $10 Australian dollars, mind you. He says, today is the Aussies Rule Football Grand Finale. Normally every day is all about the Suns for me, but my team, Collingwood Magpies, made it. Can I get a go Pies from you both? I know that I no, hold on. I will say I was stationed in Korea for a year, and when you're stationed in Korea, all they get is fucking Aussie rules football, and they do this thing when they score. They go like this. They go like. So let's go Pies.
Go Pies.
There you go. You're welcome,
awesome.
Blaze. I hope I did that right. I mean, it was a long fucking time ago. I was stationed there in 2003/4. So
wow.
Anything else you want to talk about before we get out of here today, Geek?
You know what? First off, this has been an excellent show, even though I was interrupting Matthew every like 2 seconds.
He interrupts himself.
No, it was a great show, man. I feel like I covered everything I wanted to cover. Shameless plug here. I'm not trying to take away from anything you and Matthew got going on, but I will also be live after media day, because I'll be able to process some of the things, and I might even do a second show after that, trying to warm up for the regular season and training camp and all that, because there's going to be a lot to take away from media day, I don't think one show can cover it. You know what I mean? I feel like you and I will probably look back and be like, oh my God, this player said that. We got to talk about it. You know what I mean? But just getting hyped for the season, man. Like I said, media days when basketball season starts for me. And I've already talked about this on my channel and tonight. I will be in Phoenix for a week. Yes, shocker. I don't live in Phoenix. It's a long, boring story, but I will be there. Hopefully we can get together, man, do a podcast or something like that. Drink a couple beers, you know. I reached out to Justin from the Fanning the Flames podcast. He wants to hang out and all that. So it's going to be a blast. I'm going to be filming content and all this stuff. So I'm hyped, man. Can't wait.
We're excited to have you back out here. Obviously, the first time I ever met you was actually in person at a Suns game. I believe it was the Suns Sacramento. Was it that season?
Yeah, I think it was like an early game, like early in the season game.
Oh yeah, it was like the first or second game of the season. Yep. I'll never forget one time I was at the game and like I followed you on Twitter, and I don't know if you follow me yet. And I could see you sitting down close to the court, and I was like tweeting at you and stuff, you know. So once upon a time, so super excited to have you back in the Valley. Looking forward to hanging out with you next week. Suns Jam session again. We'll be live at Suns Media Day on Monday. On Wednesday, I plan on going live with the Portland Trailcasters, a Portland Blazers podcast.
That's a tongue twister.
Yeah, it is. Portland Trailcasters. So looking forward to talking with those guys and getting their perception on Nurkic and Little and Johnson, as well as providing some insight. For those of you who are very pro DA, you might not want to tune into that because I'm going to be a little too real, about DA. Loved the guy when he's here, wanted him to succeed, but he obviously had his shortcomings. And when somebody wants to know about somebody who's coming to their team, you're going to give them the entire picture. So I'll tell them, I'll give them the pros and I'll give them the cons. Hashtag keeping it real. And then obviously we'll be doing a live show sometime next week when Suns Geeks in town. So plenty of stuff upcoming. We're ramping up for the season, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, jamsters of all ages, Geek Squad all over the place. We're looking forward to all the content that we're going to be bringing you this upcoming season. It's going to be a great season for the Phoenix Suns. So anything else you got for them, Suns Geek?
That's it, man. Just, buckle up your seatbelts and get ready. This is going to be a crazy season. I know you and I and Matthew are going to be working together a lot. I can't wait. God bless you guys. Stay safe out there. Yeah, it's going to be amazing. I can't wait for this season.
And go home and love your family.